Hey guys, Medieval Martyr here with another Slay the Spire video. So today I want to talk about the Silent character. I want to talk about how the guy works, how he is best used, and the best builds that you should be working towards to win games and climb up those ascensions. Now before we get into build talks, I just want to kind of preface this by saying don't go into a game with a pre-made build in your head. So don't go into the game saying, I'm going to use this build that I've seen online, because your first three options might set you up with a very good different build. Or the relics that drop, you might get the relics that work really well, the poison build. So you should adapt and make the builds that it's kind of giving you. Try and make the best situation out of what you're seeing. But it's good to have an idea of what the best builds are. So as you start getting offered stuff, you can work towards, you can make the best of what you're being given, if that makes sense. Also guys, the footage in the background is just from an old stream, so it's not too relevant to this. I'm going to be putting writing, and I'm going to put in pictures of the cards up on this in front of the gameplay, so you can kind of see what I'll be explaining as we go along. So first I wanted to explain the Silent, the pros and cons that are important to understand when playing the Silent, and how to best play him. So on the pro side, he is a very defensive character and can stack defense really well. The character also needs to ramp up, but when they ramp up, the damage is crazy. So for example, a poison build, you can get up to 100 poison per turn, playing no cards on that turn. So it kind of gets incrementally insane the longer the rounds go on. Also, they've got a lot of no-cost cards and cycle cards to get through a deck. Like a small deck works incredibly well. The con side, I think I've already touched on, it does take a long time to build. So if you've got an early round with a high hitter, like the stabbing thing, the big knife, that's going to mess you up. Things like the gremlin can wreck you, so it doesn't let you use skills, or like punishes you for using skills, which will wreck you quite a lot. The time eater, that can be a big problem if you're using like a shiv build. So if you're trying to use like 10 cards in a turn, you're going to get wrecked by the time eater. There are ways around it, but it's quite hard. And then the final one, this is kind of unique to the Silent in my opinion. If you don't go down a specific path and you don't try and build all in on one area, they can have really low damage compared to the other builds. So normally if you just wing it with like the Ironclad, you'll get there. But with the Silent, if you don't go down a funnel, you can end up with a really low power build. And on the high ascensions, you just get wrecked by normal mobs. So with that in mind, let's start getting into some of the builds. Now, if you start seeing early on shiv cards, so infinite blades, cloak and dagger, accuracy, anything like that, or you see any relics that look like they would promote the shiv build well, you want to start working towards a full shiv build, because they're quite weak on their own. So for example, infinite blades on their own, having a shiv in your hand doesn't do a great deal. I mean, take it, but it's not incredible. However, if you go all in, you are going to have hands full of zero cost cards that are just plowing damage through the enemy, and you can just wreck through bosses super quick. So I'm going to put up on screen the kinds of synergies you want to be making. Firstly, these cards are, in my opinion, a must. These are the ones you want to be taking every time you see them. So the shiv itself, 0 cost, 4 damage, and it's exhausting after you use it, so it's gone on use. If you have an accuracy, that becomes a 7 cost card, so it's doing as much damage as your strikes. Well, more damage than your strikes, which is crazy for a 0 cost. Then if you can get infinite blades and you're getting shivs in your hand, that's 7 damage for free every single turn. Now, again, block, that becomes 6 damage, 6 block for 1 cost. And then shivs, you're spending 1 and you're able to do 12 damage. Now, the things that would take this build that you see on screen, if you just had these cards in your hand, you'd be doing a fair amount of damage, you'd be getting some nice cheap shots in. But then I want to show you the sort of things you want to be trying to get, or the sort of things you want to be looking for, that can turn this simple low-cost combo into a crazy build that will win you all your games. So first, I want to go through the sort of relics that you want to be looking for, and then I'm going to go through the additional cards that supplement this really well. So first off, the relics. So I've put the 5 relics that I would always be looking for when I'm trying to do a shiv build. And I'll talk through them real quick, because these are ones you want to be looking for. I mean, you can't pick them, but if you get them early, you would know it's time to start making a shiv build. And they also if you get them, it's good to know how they interact, because obviously it will affect how you play every round. So top left, we've got the wrist blade. This increases your shiv damage by 4. So it's better than a card, because it's there every single game and you don't have to play any cards for it. Second, you've got the shuriken. 3 attacks increase your strength by 1. So play 3 attacks in a turn and your strength goes up by 1. This is insane, because you're going to be playing a lot of attacks if you've got shivs, because they're free. So your attack ramps up really, your strength ramps up really quick, and strength affects the shiv. So the shivs will exponentially get stronger. Third from the left is the fan. Every time you play 3 attacks in a turn, you get 4 block. So you're going to be, like I said, you're going to be playing a lot of attacks because they're free. And then if you're getting 4 block every time, that means you can go fully on the offensive without worrying too much about having blocks. Then the next one is the kunai, I think you say it. And then every 3 attacks, you gain 1 dexterity. So again, like the fan, as you're building up your defensives at the same time, which is really important. Then the last one, maybe it's not what most people consider for this guide. However, because you're playing so many attacks, the pen nib, on your 10th attack, you'll deal double damage. So it doesn't affect the shiv so much because they are low damage, but you will be cycling through cards so fast that you're going to have this happen a lot. And, you know, in one fight, you might have the pen nib interact twice. So it's great to have, not so important as the rest, but I would always, if you get that early, consider making a shiv build. And then some other cards that I would try and pick up, so if you get offered them, try and take them, or if you see them in the shop, but they're not crucial for making the build work, would be the finisher card. Deal 6 damage for each attack you've played this turn. You're going to play a lot of attacks as the shiv build. And then talking about playing a lot of attacks, after image, which whenever you play a card, gain 1 block. And then 1,000 cuts, whenever you play a card, deal 1 damage. So they just interact really well with the high amount of cards being played from the shiv build. And then the choke as well, and envenom work well. So envenom applies 1 poison for every attack. That can ramp up really quick. And then choke will deal 3 damage for every card you play. But that's just on that turn. So hopefully that gives you a rough idea of how to build the build. I could make a more in-depth guide going into every single card and their synergies. Let me know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in. I am a very small channel, and these videos, I try to make them quite high quality and put a lot of effort into them. So if you found this useful, before we get on to the next build, if you could drop a subscribe on the channel, that helps me out a ton and I'd really appreciate it. But other than that, on to the next build, the poison build. So the way poison works in Slay the Spire is poison goes on as a debuff. At the beginning of the turn, the target will lose an amount of health determined by how much poison is on the character. And then poison will degrade by 1 after that turn. Poison doesn't transfer. There are cards that allow it to transfer, but if the target dies with poison, the target will just die and the poison will be gone. And poison is only applied to 1 character at a time. Like I say, there are things that will put it on more, but let's get into a poison build. Right guys, so in my opinion, I've laid out what I believe are the best cards to be looking for and using when making a poison build. So I'll go through them one by one. Deadly Poison, 5 damage, the biggest poison builder you can get your hands on for the cost. Get it every time. Poison Stab, in my opinion, when you go into a shop, try and remove cards from your deck. Try and get rid of the strikes and try and get the poison stabs. They're exactly the same as the strike, but they add poison. You want to take this every single time. Unless you've got a heavy hand, and you've got loads of strikes, you don't want to be neglecting your defenses. So that's the only time I would say don't take the stabs. Noxious Fume is the best poison passive. Every single turn deals 2 poison to all enemies. Incredible, 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 incredible. And you can upgrade it. And then Envenom at the end. This applies 1 extra poison. So if you can't get rid of your strikes, this does help add a bit of extra poison. If you've got a couple of shivs in your hand, that helps. It also adds an extra 1 to the poison stab. And just generally is a power, so it's great as a passive throughout the game, throughout the fight. I mentioned before that poison doesn't pass over when something dies. So if you've got a double enemy or a team, the corpse explosion is incredible. So if you've got something with like 50 health or 40 health and you can rack up poison and then kill it, it will deal its max health to the rest of the team. it's incredible, but it is very situational. Then the best to last, the Catalyst. This is the game winner. Upgrade this and it changes from double the enemy's poison to triple the enemy's poison. And I've had games where I've got the enemy with like 40 poison, I triple it to 120, the game's over. That's the match won. Take this every single time. Take 2 if you can. I'm obsessed with the Catalyst. I always try and use it. The only ones I haven't mentioned is the Bouncing Flask, because I find it's 2 cost and it applies 3 poison to 3 random enemies. I just find it too expensive for what it does, and I never seem to be in a position where I can use it. The Crippling Cloud applies 4 poison and 2 weakness to all enemies. I usually don't take this because I take the Noxious Fumes. If you can't get Noxious Fumes, then this is helpful, but it's not a power, so you have to use it every turn that you get it. Also, there's the Poison Potion. This is the potion. If you see that, great, because they interact with the rest of your spells and the rest of your cards. So that pretty much covers the cards that you want to be taking on a poison build. And then there are 3 incredible relics that you want to be looking for. And if you get these relics early on, make a poison build. I did quickly forget to mention Bane. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of Bane. If the enemy has poison, it will double attack. It is statistically a great card. So if you see it, try it out. Okay, onto the relics. So the ones I put up on screen are the 3 you always want to be looking for. Top left, you have the Twisted Funnel. At the start of each combat, 4 poison to all enemies. Try and buy this if you see it. Secondly is the Specimen. Okay, so we talked about the Corpse Exploder, exploding the corpse, so that's good for multiple targets. If you have the Specimen, that's even better. When an enemy dies, all poison is transferred to a random enemy. So if you've got like the 2 big enemies, like the Thing and the Donut, the boss at the end of the act, you can rack up 100 poison on one of them, it'll die, transfer that entire poison to the next one. It's a double kill. It's phenomenal. And then at the last one is the Snecko Skull. I think that's how you say it. And that, whenever you apply poison, apply 1 additional poison. Incredible. It just makes the poison game so much better. It literally doubles your ability for every card you're playing. They are the relics to look for. They are the relics to buy, and they are all as overpowered as each other. I've had a run write 2 of these, and it was insane. If you could get 3 of these in a run, you're going to dominate everything. I see no way of you losing. So I think I've covered the 2 strongest builds and how best to look for these cards. I would always be trying to funnel into one of these 2 builds, or taking some sort of hybrid of the 2 if you're not getting everything you need. But I do want to say there are tons of cards available to the Silent, and there are tons of hybrid builds and unique little niche builds that you can make. And there are tons of combos between 2 little cards that you want to be looking for. There's just too much to mention. And the more you play, you'll find little interactions that work well. I just wanted to make here a broad but detailed guide on what to look for and what direction to be taking your run into. I hope you found it helpful. If you want me to go in detail on anything else, let me know. I'm going to make one for the other characters in the same sort of style. So if anyone has any suggestions, let me know. But I really hope this has been helpful. I try to reply to comments all the time. If you want to ask questions directly, I do stream on Twitch. I will drop my link in the description. Feel free to pop by. I'm normally playing some sort of roguelike or card game or some sort of strategy sort of thing. So yeah, drop by. You can ask any questions, or we can just talk about these sort of games. Other than that, thank you so much for watching and have a good day.